The United States of America will host the 2026 World Cup. They have the stadiums. They have the infrastructure. They have the budget. They have a young, talented squad filled with players competing at the highest levels of European club football. They have home advantage, which in World Cup history has produced some of the most dramatic, unexpected results the sport has ever seen. 8 of the 21 previous World Cup winners lifted the trophy on home soil or in their own continental region. And yet, something is missing. Not talent, not ambition, not money. Something far more complicated than any of those things. Something that can't be bought in a transfer window or coached into existence in a training session. Something that every other serious World Cup contender has, and the United States, despite everything it possesses, still hasn't fully found. If you think you already know what that is, you might be wrong. Because the answer goes much deeper than the obvious one. And by the time this story is finished, you'll understand exactly why 2026 could be the greatest American football moment in history, or the most heartbreaking one. To understand where America stands right now, you have to understand how far they've already come, because the story of United States football is one of the most underappreciated developmental journeys in the history of the sport. In 1950, the United States pulled off one of the greatest upsets in World Cup history, beating England 1-0 in a group stage match that the English press initially thought was a misprint when the scoreline came through. England beaten by America in football. The disbelief was total. But that result was largely an anomaly rather than a foundation, and American football fell dormant on the international stage for decades, while the rest of the world accelerated. The real shift began in 1994. The United States hosted the World Cup, and the whole country experienced something unexpected. It fell briefly, electrifyingly in love with the game. Over 3.5 million people attended matches, a record that stood for years. Mills was born the following year as a direct consequence. Academies started forming. Youth development began taking shape. A generation of American children grew up with football as a real option rather than a novelty. That generation is now playing professionally in Europe, and what they have built looks genuinely serious. Christian Pulisic is the most recognizable name in American football, and the clearest symbol of how far the national team has traveled. He grew up in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the son of a former college football player who moved the family to Europe specifically to develop his son's career. Pulisic joined Borussia Dortmund's academy at 16, broke into the first team at 17, and became one of the most exciting young wingers in the Bundesliga before Chelsea paid £64 million to sign him in 2019, making him the most expensive American footballer in history at that point. His career at club level has been inconsistent, marked by injuries and difficult periods on the bench. But in an AC Milan shirt, playing in Serie A, Pulisic has found a rhythm and a confidence that makes him dangerous in ways American football hasn't seen before. He is quick, technically polished, fearless in one-on-one situations, and capable of moments that make European defenders genuinely uncomfortable. Around him, the squad has remarkable depth for a nation that was absent from the 2018 World Cup, entirely a failure so embarrassing it triggered a complete overhaul of the entire federation. Weston McKennie competes in Serie A. Tyler Adams, before his injury struggles, was one of the most highly regarded defensive midfielders in the Premier League. Yunus Musah plays in Europe's elite leagues. Gio Reyna, son of American football legend Claudio Reyna, has long been considered one of the most gifted players of his generation when fully fit. Ricardo Pepi has found form and goals at European club level after a difficult start to his senior career. This squad is not a collection of enthusiastic amateurs representing a football-curious nation. These are professional players operating at the highest levels of club football on the planet. They qualified for Qatar 2022 under Greg Berhalter, reached the round of 16, and gave eventual runners-up Netherlands a genuine game before losing 3-1. Progress is real. The trajectory is clear. But trajectory and readiness are two completely different things. Here is where the story gets complicated and uncomfortable and honest. The thing the United States is still chasing is tournament mentality. That specific, almost impossible to define quality that separates teams who perform in high-pressure knockout football from teams who collapse under the weight of expectation when it matters most. This isn't a criticism, it's a football reality. Tournament mentality is built through suffering, through genuine heartbreak on the biggest stages, through losing finals and semifinals that your country cares about deeply, grieving them properly, and then coming back harder because of that grief. Argentina didn't develop tournament mentality from winning, they developed it from losing the 2014 final, from the pain of near misses, from Messi carrying a country's heartbreak for years before 2022 finally arrived. Germany has it because of decades of World Cup culture stretching back to 1954. Brazil has it because football is wound into the national identity at a cellular level. Children grow up knowing the 1970 team, the 1994 team, the agony of the Maracanazo in 1950. Italy has it. France has it. These nations have been through enough at World Cups to know how to handle the weight. The United States has not. Not yet. And 2026, with home advantage, with a genuinely talented squad, with a nation finally paying real attention, will be the most severe test of that psychological gap the program has ever faced. The home advantage factor makes this exponentially more complex. In theory, playing at home is an enormous benefit. The crowd is yours. The travel is minimal. The emotional energy of an entire nation behind you is a genuine sporting force. France won on home soil in 1998. Argentina in 1978. West Germany in 1974, England in 1966, Uruguay in 1930 and 1950. The pattern is real. But home advantage also comes with home pressure. And home pressure, when it collides with a nation that is hosting a World Cup for largely commercial and political reasons as much as footballing ones, creates a specific kind of psychological environment that is brutally difficult to manage. The United States will play in front of sold-out stadiums filled with supporters whose understanding and love of football varies dramatically. Some will be devoted, deeply knowledgeable fans who have watched the program develop over decades. Others will be casual sports fans drawn in by the spectacle, applying the same demand for winning that American sports culture attaches to its elite NFL, NBA, and MLB franchises. That crowd mixture, that expectation without the football-specific patience, creates pressure that even experienced football nations struggle to handle. When the United States goes behind in a knockout game, what happens in those stadiums will be unlike anything the American football program has experienced. The question isn't whether the players are talented enough to come back. It's whether they've been through enough together to stay calm, stay structured, and trust the process when the weight of 65,000 anxious home supporters is pressing down on every decision. Mauricio Pochettino took charge of the United States national team in 2024. This appointment matters more than most people outside of serious football circles have recognized. Pochettino is not a coach who was brought in to fill a role. He is a coach who was brought in to solve the exact problem that has been identified here. His work at Tottenham Hotspur between 2014 and 2019 is the most relevant case study. He took a club that had spent years being talented, but psychologically fragile in big moments, and rebuilt their mentality from the ground up. He installed a defensive structure, a pressing system, and most critically, a belief that the team could compete against anyone in Europe. He took Spurs to the Champions League final in 2019. They lost to Liverpool. But the journey demonstrated that mentality can be coached, shaped, and accelerated by the right person in the right environment. That is precisely what he has been tasked with doing in the United States, building tactical clarity that the squad's talent can express, creating a team that functions under pressure rather than fragmenting, and doing it with enough time before 2026 that the lessons feel embedded rather than borrowed. The tactical framework he appears to favor suits this squad well. High pressing, vertical transitions, physical intensity combined with technical quality, Pulisic in advanced areas, McKennie's engine in the middle, a back line that is mobile enough to hold a high defensive line. On paper, it is coherent and modern. The question is always what happens to paper plans in a World Cup quarterfinal when Argentina or France or whoever comes at you in waves and the entire nation is watching. There is one more layer to this story that almost never gets discussed in the mainstream conversation, and it might be the most important one. The United States has an incredibly diverse footballing population. First- and second-generation immigrants from Mexico, Central America, West Africa, Eastern Europe, and beyond have produced footballers of genuine international quality who fell through the gaps of the American system or chose to represent other nations. The pipeline question, how many players of USMNT quality are choosing other national teams or not being identified early enough, remains a serious structural issue that MLS academies and the Federation are actively working to solve, but haven't fully solved yet. There is also the matter of Gio Reyna's fitness. When he is fully available and fully motivated, Reyna is the closest thing this squad has to a match winner in the Pulisic mold, two exceptional players who can genuinely change games through individual quality. Getting both of them fit, focused, and informed simultaneously for a tournament that runs over a month would be genuinely transformative for how far this team can go. Now imagine this: the quarterfinal, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, the United States versus one of the traditional powers. Pulisic with the ball on the edge of the area. 80,000 people on their feet. The entire country watching. A generation of development. 20 years of infrastructure building. All of it converging in a single moment. That moment is coming. Whether it ends in triumph or devastation will depend not on the talent in the American squad, which is real, but on what lives inside those players when the lights are brightest and the game is on the line. Tournament mentality cannot be given. It has to be earned. And the only way to earn it is to survive moments exactly like that one. The United States has everything a World Cup contender needs. The players, the coach, the home crowds, the resources, the momentum. Everything except the one thing that matters most when the margin between glory and elimination is a single decision in extra time. But here is what nobody should forget. Every nation that has ever developed genuine tournament mentality had to find it somewhere for the first time. Had to have a tournament where everything crystallized, where the pressure was highest and the belief became unbreakable. Brazil found it. Germany found it. Argentina found it. France found it. In the summer of 2026, on home soil, in front of a country that is finally paying attention to this sport in a way it never quite has before, the United States will get their chance to find it too. What they do with that chance will define American football for the next generation, maybe longer. The stadiums are ready. The squad is ready. The moment is ready. The only real question is whether they are.